The day I divorced Simon, he brought his dream girl with him. We had just finished signing our divorce papers when he immediately went next door to get a marriage license with her. Maybe it was because his long-held wish had finally come true, and he got so excited he had a stroke. He's paralyzed now. He cheated. I don't have proof yet, and I can't rush into divorce. A cheater must leave with nothing. I look at the divorce papers in my hand, already filled out and signed by me. Even though I've decided to divorce him, my chest still feels tight when I see the papers. I place the agreement in the bottom drawer of the nightstand. Hear movement at the door. Simon's back. It seems like he's been drinking. The smell of alcohol fills the air. I frown, but don't go to help him. Simon lifts his head to look at me. I don't know how long it's been, but eventually he stretches out his hand toward me. Honey, help. Me? Take a shower? I turn my gaze away. Do it yourself. You're not drunk, and I don't like the smell of alcohol. Simon drops his hand, lowers his head, and walks past me straight into the bedroom. Soon after, I hear the sound of running water from the bathroom. Leaning against the doorframe, my eyes involuntarily drift to the photo on the table. It was taken when we were in college, chased and pursued him for 2 whole years. We didn't get together until our senior year. Back then, all of Simon's friends told me to give up because he had an ex-girlfriend named Laura. Laura was a girl who danced really well and was very beautiful. She got into this school with extra points for her artistic talent, and during military training, she quickly became popular with her fan dance performance. Her photos and name were all over the confession wall for a while. But out of everyone who liked her, Laura ended up with Simon. Simon was also outstanding, physically and in looks. He was among the best at school. I wasn't surprised they got together. Everyone said they were a perfect match made for each other. But less than 6 months into their relationship, Laura broke up with him. The very next day, she started dating a rich boy from our school. Simon didn't recover from the breakup. I met him about a week after they split. That day, a group organized a karaoke night and invited my roommate. After some discussion, my roommate brought all 4 of us from our dorm. That was the first time I saw Simon up close. He was really good looking, every feature, just my type. When you like someone, you have to go for it. So I added Simon on WeChat, and he didn't refuse. I felt like I had a chance. Then I chased him for 2 years. During that time, so many people told me to give up, but I didn't. Simon's face was exactly my type. Even if he didn't like me, just seeing him every day made me feel better. But he accepted my confession. After graduation, he said he wanted to start a business, and I supported him. When he faced his hardest times, I stood by him every step of the way. And so I spent 7 years of my youth on him. Now, less than a year into our marriage, he's already cheated. I was lost in thought, staring at the photo, not noticing that Simon was standing behind me. It wasn't until he spoke that I snapped out of it. Alice, what's wrong? Why'd you go drinking again? Turned around, pretending nothing was wrong, and leaned closer to him. The smell of alcohol had faded significantly, replaced mostly by the scent of body wash. Simon reached out and gently rubbed my head. There's been a lot of socializing these past few days. I had to drink, no choice. I nodded, not pressing further, and got up to go to the bathroom. I glanced at the laundry basket, picked up his clothes, and looked them over. The white shirt Simon had worn today had a faint lipstick stain on the back of the collar. Simon has always been meticulous. He wouldn't allow such an obvious slip-up, so it could only be his mistress deliberately leaving a mark, while Simon wasn't paying attention. I tossed the shirt back into the laundry basket. A constant prickling pain gnawed at my chest. Now that Simon's career is thriving, there are times when people try to set him up with girls, but he always turns them down. I thought he was different from the others. When I finished my shower and came out, Simon was already asleep, lying there quietly, the moonlight outside mixed with the warm glow of the streetlights, casting a soft light on Simon's face, adding a gentle touch to it. My hand lightly touched Simon's face. This face, he really is handsome. I prepared Simon's clothes for tomorrow, and after hesitating for a moment, I slipped a tiny tracker into one of the pockets. The next morning, when I woke up, Simon was already gone. I hugged myself, burying my head in my knees. When did Simon start acting strange? It seemed to have begun the day before Lara reappeared in the public eye. I got dressed, tidied up the house, and made some food. Watching the clock, I grabbed my bag and left the house right at 11:30. My phone showed that Simon was at the office. I carried the packed meal and headed straight to his company. Everyone there knew me. It wasn't just Simon's wife, but also one of the founding members. Many decisions at the board level had to go through me for approval. I walked straight into Simon's office. He wasn't there, so I sat on the couch to wait for him. But instead of just Simon, I saw him walking in with Lara by his side, and Simon even thoughtfully held the door open for her when he saw me sitting. In his office, Simon visibly stiffened. Lara, on the other hand, remained calm, smiling as she extended her hand to greet me, looking graceful and confident. "You must be Simon's wife. You're so beautiful." Simon is lucky to have married such a stunning woman. I smiled and shook her hand. "Not at all, Lara. You flatter me." Lara feigned surprise. "Oh, you already know who I am?" "Husband's ex-girlfriend." Lara was quite the sensation back in our school days. Who wouldn't know her? I made sure to emphasize the words ex-girlfriend. Lara's expression cracked slightly and Simon averted his gaze. He noticed the lunchbox on the table and cleared his throat. "Alice, why did you suddenly bring me lunch? Didn't you drink yesterday?" "You also left early this morning, so I made some soup that's good for your stomach and packed you a meal. You need to take better care of your health." I smiled as I opened the lunchbox, letting the aroma drift out. I was confident in my cooking skills. I set the meal on the table, 2 dishes and a bowl of soup. "You eat first. I'm heading home now." As I turned to leave, Simon called out to me, "Alice, aren't you staying to eat with me?" "No, I've made plans to go shopping with a friend." Just as I reached the door, I suddenly stopped and looked back at Lara. "By the way, Lara, what position do you hold here? Remember, you studied dance, right? That fan dance of yours sure made you a star on campus back then." "Oh, she's my assistant." A new hire," Simon said. "Lara." "Well, Lara's pretty efficient." I nodded without asking more. It's rare to see someone get along so well with their ex. "Truly a first for me," I said, leaving behind a visibly uncomfortable Simon. I opened the door and walked out. I came here to see just how far Simon would go for Lara. It seems he's not afraid of the rumors outside after all. He's bold enough to keep Lara right under his nose. Suddenly, a message popped up on my phone. "Alice, where are you? I'll come pick you up." I glanced at my best friend Ruby. "I'm downstairs at the office. Hurry over." Closing my phone, I leaned back on the sofa in the lobby, closing my eyes as if I were napping. Since I said I was going shopping, I couldn't let that lie be exposed so easily. I got into Ruby's car and she drove me straight to the biggest mall in the city center. She said I can pick anything I want. "Don't go back on your word and don't complain if I choose something expensive," I said. "Relax. I'm using Simon's card. Won't feel bad at all." Ruby clicked her tongue twice. "You and Simon still have such a good relationship. And now you're both so well off. After 7 years of working hard together, you can finally start living a happy, wealthy life. It's all been worth it. But he cheated on me. I need your help." "No problem. I'll help you with weight." "What?" Ruby's mouth dropped open like she could swallow an egg. I calmly nodded, showing no emotion. Ruby's face froze, and she looked like she was about to say something, but I reached over and gently pushed her chin shut. "You don't need to do much. You're a lawyer, so your words carry weight. I've already had someone draft the divorce papers. Just make sure he signs them when the time comes." "No problem. Leave it to me," Ruby said seriously, her carefree attitude gone. She nodded, promising to help. Ruby has been my best friend since childhood. Every time I hit a low point, she was always the one who stayed by my side, helping me through it little by little. Ruby wrapped her arm around my shoulder. "Let's go. Today, we're maxing out that jerks card." We walked into a clothing store together and she casually picked up a dress, holding it against herself. "When did you find out?" I looked at Ruby in the mirror and nodded. "Looks good, you should try it on." "I found out just recently, the day before Lara came back. Forget it." "I don't think it suits me," I said. When I pick a dress, it's not just about what I like. It has to suit me too, so why didn't you tell me? I don't have solid proof yet. Isn't it possible that he hasn't cheated? Does emotional cheating not count as cheating? Ruby didn't say anything else, but instead gave me a warm, approving look. I grabbed another dress and tossed it to her. What are you smiling at? Go try it on, Ruby pouted, still looking a bit reluctant. But she took the dress I'd randomly picked and went into the fitting room. Not long after, Ruby came out. With the dress, "Excuse me, this dress has a broken zipper." An employee quickly came over to check and then took the defective dress away. Ruby looked at me, beaming. "See? It's broken. You still want it?" "Nope, you're right. What matters most is that it fits." Ruby and I shopped for over 4 hours, swiping Simon's card and buying lots of clothes. We finally ended up at a restaurant, slowly finishing our meal. Just as we finished eating, a message popped up on my phone. I opened it to see a compressed file. Along with it came a short message. "I've disguised it as you requested. Waiting for you to settle the remaining balance. All right, I'll be there in half an hour." I looked across at Ruby and smiled in a way that probably looked a bit creepy. "Alice, what are you up to? Come with me to the amusement park. Something big is going down." Once we got to the amusement park, I headed straight to the booth that sold plush toys. I randomly picked one up and paid for it, right? Away. Ruby still didn't understand what I was doing. There was no way I'd drag her all the way here just for a stuffed toy. But soon enough, she saw the vendor hold up a QR code, and without hesitation, I transferred 50,000 yuan. Ruby grabbed my hand. "Are you insane? Spending 50,000 on a plush toy?" I didn't answer her, and instead thanked the vendor. "Q for handling this for me. You're paying for a service. No need to thank me, miss." I walked out holding the plush toy while Ruby silently pondered beside me. Figured, "It out yet? Whose card did you use?" Ruby blocked my path. "Simon's, aren't you afraid he'll get suspicious?" "He won't. Today's big expenses aren't just this one. It's not going to check each one individually." Ruby gave a helpless smile. "I told you, didn't I? You're so smart. Using a jerk's money to investigate a jerk, it's so satisfying." In the car on the way home, I reviewed the photos I had someone investigate. The compressed file wasn't very big, but it had both photos and videos. Every picture clearly showed Simon's face, and in some, the woman's face. It was visible too. I zoomed in on the photos, and Lara's face filled my phone screen. I glanced out the window, where my reflection stared back at me from the glass. When I got home, Simon was sitting on the sofa waiting for me. When he saw me carrying all the shopping bags, he stood up and took them from my hands. "Did you have fun today?" "I had a great time. I shopped with Ruby for ages, ate hot pot, and went to the amusement park. But there were so many people, we didn't get to go on many rides. Every line was so long. You were already exhausted from shopping all day." Simon sat beside me quietly, listening to my complaints. When I mentioned my legs were sore, he immediately started massaging them for me. He was always like that, patient, gentle, and so considerate. Such a wonderful man. If it weren't for the cheating, I wouldn't be able to find a single flaw in him. Over the next few days, I kept receiving more photos from the investigator. In them, Simon was smiling tenderly as he took Lara to many places he'd never taken me. I clutched my chest, feeling it tighten, curling up on the sofa. Could there be a single day he didn't spend with Lara? Then a message notification popped up on my phone. It was a voice recording along with a text message. "Miss Alice, I thought about it and believe you should hear this yourself." I was puzzled but pressed play. There was some noise at first. Then Simon's faint voice came through. After a few moments of silence, his voice became clearer. "Alice treats me very well, and I wouldn't be where I am today without her help. But the one I've always loved is Lara. I couldn't let Alice down, so I married her. She loves me, so I married her. That's all I could give her. I agreed to be with her because she chased me for 2 years. I thought she was interesting, and during those tough early days of starting my business, someone had to be willing to go through the hard times with me. Lara left me back then because I didn't have money. But as long as I make enough, Lara will come back to me." Alice loves me too much. She won't ask for a divorce. She can't leave me, so as long as I don't make it too obvious. She won't blame me. I'll have Laura get rid of the baby first. It's too risky right now. If Alice finds out, I won't be able to explain it. I've given Alice everything I could these past few years. Besides Laura, I haven't touched another woman. She's living so comfortably now. That's all thanks to me. Well, she should be content. The recording cut off, and my phone slipped from my hand, landing on the carpet with a dull thud. For those few seconds after the recording ended, I don't know what I was thinking. All I knew was that I suddenly couldn't breathe. My chest was tight, and my heart ached painfully. Simon. I had given nearly 10 years of my life to him. I stood by him for 10 years. But in the end, it was all just one-sided. All these years, the person he liked, the person he loved, had always been Laura. And now, Laura is pregnant carrying his child. All along, I was just an extra in his world. If that's the case, I won't stand in the way of him chasing his happiness anymore. I picked up my phone and dialed Ruby's number. Hello, what's up? Alice, are you ready for the divorce talks? Yeah. When are you free? I'm free tomorrow and the day after. Did you cry? What happened? Did that jerk Simon do something to you? I wiped away my tears. It's nothing. Just want him to sign the divorce papers and leave without anything. The next day I stopped Simon and handed him the divorce papers. He didn't take them. Ruby is already on her way here. I have proof of your affair, and Laura is pregnant, isn't she? You've never truly loved me, so I won't force it. And you don't need to threaten Laura into aborting the baby. It's your own kid, after all. You wouldn't be that heartless. Let's get divorced. It'll be better for you, me, and her. You wouldn't want me to take this to court, would you? Said it casually, but I didn't expect Simon to sign the papers right away. Without hesitation, he signed the divorce agreement. He looked down at me, his gaze softening. I was only dragging it out because I thought you didn't want a divorce. After all, you stood by me through 7 years of hard work, and I didn't want to treat you unfairly. But now that you brought it up, I have no reason to refuse. If there's nothing else, I'll head to work now. Let's schedule a time to get the divorce certificate. After saying that, Simon left the house without looking back. I could feel his attitude toward me had suddenly cooled. It must have been exhausting for him to keep up the act for so many years, pretending all that time. Clutching the divorce papers, I crouched in the corner, silently sobbing. He truly had no feelings for me at all. He left so decisively. Alice, what's wrong? Where's Simon? Did he hurt you? I shook my head and threw myself into Ruby's arms, finally letting myself cry out loud. After what felt like ages, I cried myself out and slowly stopped. Why? Why does he say he didn't want to treat me unfairly while doing exactly that? He doesn't even like me anymore. So why did he agree to my confession back then? I was ready to give up in senior year, but he was the one who said yes. He's the one who gave me hope. So why does he act so high and mighty now, as if just looking at me is some kind of charity? I rambled, frustration spilling out. Seeing how upset I was, Ruby decided to take me out for a good time. After all, we wouldn't be able to get the divorce certificate for another month. Ruby took time off and flew with me to different places. I saw beautiful landscapes and watched others' happiness. Slowly, the knots in my heart started to loosen, and I began to feel brighter inside. Then, standing in front of the Civil Affairs Bureau, watching Simon and Laura holding hands, I felt nothing, no more waves of emotion. Laura gently touched her barely visible belly and walked over to my side. Laura leaned in close to my ear, lowering her voice but with a sharp, mocking tone. After standing by him for so long, it was all for nothing in the end. 7 or 8 years of your youth wasted? I almost feel sorry for you. I took a step back, creating some distance between Laura and me. That baby you're carrying, it's my husband's, I said firmly. Simon and I haven't even gotten our divorce yet, and you're already rushing to show off. I didn't speak quietly, so the people nearby heard me clearly. I started glancing at Simon and Laura with disapproval. Laura's face turned pale, and she quickly hid behind Simon. Simon forced a stiff smile and said, "Let's just get the divorce certificate quickly." Once Simon and I had the divorce papers, he immediately took Laura to line up for their marriage certificate. The crowd that had gathered earlier didn't leave. Instead, they looked at Simon and Laura with even more contempt. People passing by kept their distance from them. As for me, I didn't feel much. I kept looking at my divorce certificate, several times feeling a strange sense of satisfaction. Ruby had promised to pick me up for a big celebration meal, so I sat on a bench at the Civil Affairs Bureau to wait. Then I saw it with my own eyes, just as Simon and Laura finished getting their marriage certificate and were walking out the door. Simon suddenly collapsed to the ground, hit the floor with a loud thud, and everyone around him hurriedly moved out of the way in panic. I watched as Laura started crying uncontrollably, but I quickly pulled out my phone and called an ambulance. After I hung up, I turned to leave. Ruby arrived at the same time as the ambulance. Afraid trouble might find me, I slipped into Ruby's car amid the crowd. Curious as ever, Ruby glanced at the chaotic scene, people rushing around the ambulance. Pulling up, she looked like she wanted to crane her neck to see what was going on. I reached over and gently pushed her head back down. Stop being nosy. Let's get out of here. Wait, what happened? Who called the ambulance? Tell me what's going on. Drive first, I'll explain on the way. Ruby cast a few more glances outside before finally starting the car. As I looked at the crowded Civil Affairs Bureau through the rearview mirror, I began telling her what had just happened. When she heard that Simon collapsed right after getting the marriage certificate with Laura, she pulled over into a temporary parking spot on the side of the road and laughed for a solid 3 minutes before getting back on the road. I stared at her, speechless, not wanting to say anything more. Since Simon had already signed the divorce agreement, he agreed to leave with nothing. The house and the car were now mine, and I still kept my shares in the company. I hadn't taken back his shares either, but he had transferred 5% of his shares to me, making me the largest shareholder in the company. Why didn't you take full control of the company? I don't manage it as well as he does, and I can't just cut off his livelihood entirely. Plus, Laura's pregnant, and once they have the baby, expenses will only go up. I was speaking honestly from my heart. Even though Simon had done wrong, he didn't deserve to be completely ruined. Without money, how would he even survive? I decided to sell the house on a listing platform, bought a small apartment for myself, and hired movers to transfer everything to my new home all at once. Since Simon was in the hospital during this time, I was left to handle the company affairs. I looked at the stack of documents in front of me, feeling a headache coming on. Simon used to manage all this, and I only participated in major decision-making meetings. It had been a long time since I'd had to go through so many files. After a tiring day at the office, I finally felt relieved when it was time to go home. But as soon as I stepped outside the company, I saw Laura waiting at the entrance. After I asked Simon for a divorce, she had quit her job. Simon probably promised to give her all his money so she could live the way she wanted. But now, seeing Laura dressed in a simple t-shirt and casual pants, I was surprised. Simon had plenty of money in his account, so why was Laura, who always loved dressing up, looking so plain now? As soon as Laura saw me, she hurried over. Her face looked worn out, like she hadn't slept well. Tell us we need to talk. I nodded and took her to the convenience store downstairs. We sat inside, and she got straight to the point. You knew Simon had a stroke from the start, didn't you? I frowned and shook my head. Simon had never mentioned it to me. But Laura didn't seem to believe me. Of course you knew. That's why you wanted to divorce him, right? Now he's paralyzed and I have to care for him. Why should I? Promised me he'd take care of me. But he said no matter how much I spent, he'd always support me. Now look at the situation. Soon as they found out about the stroke, he became paralyzed. I not only have to take care of him, but I'm also pregnant and all the money is gone. You need to give me an explanation. You have to cover all of Simon's medical expenses. Don't even think about dodging this. If you don't pay, I'll show up at your company every day to cause trouble. I'll make sure you can't get any work done or sign any contracts. After Laura finished, I smiled at her gracefully. Laura, you can't get out of the marriage now. Laura froze. Her gaze quickly hardened, turning venomous as she shot a sharp glare at me. Anyone who knows Simon knows that you're the dream girl he could never get. Now that he's finally married to you, he's not going to let go easily. Maybe you don't really understand Simon, but I've lived with him for over 7 years, so I know his temperament. The idea of letting go for love, of letting the one he loves be happy, that can happen once. But it won't happen twice, especially not with the Simon we have now. He's seen enough of the backstabbing in the business world and believes that only when he's completely in control can he feel at ease. That includes you, Lara. I smiled faintly, picked up my bag, and was about to leave. Lara hurried forward and blocked my way, her voice full of desperation. Please, I'm begging you. I have no money. He's still in the hospital, and I really don't have any left. I took a step back. I thought you already ran off with the money, I said. Lara froze at my words, tears quickly filling her eyes. You think I didn't want to? If it weren't for Simon's assistant having people watching me, I would have run a long time ago. Hearing that, I glanced around the convenience store, but I didn't see Simon's assistant. I took a few steps toward the window and saw someone standing outside in a black shirt. I was familiar with the people around Simon and immediately recognized him as the assistant Simon had recently fired. I'd thought it was strange at the time. He was excellent in every way and incredibly loyal to Simon. Why would Simon suddenly decide to fire him? Now it seemed that Simon had foreseen this exact situation. Did he already know he was sick? I sat back down, lost in thought, recalling past events. Simon was always very busy, sometimes working late into the night without a break. Everyone around him said he was working himself to death. I thought the same. But I couldn't convince him to slow down, so in the end, I just let him be. I knew he wanted to make money. Without his relentless work ethic, the company wouldn't have grown so quickly. Looking back, there were signs something was wrong. Simon had mentioned that he occasionally experienced ringing in his ears and headaches. The worst incident happened while he was washing up. He suddenly collapsed to the floor. I heard the noise and rushed over, helping him into a chair. He held his head for a long time, before finally recovering. I poured him a glass of water and asked if he wanted to go to the hospital, but Simon just shook his head. My leg just went numb, and I felt a bit dizzy. I probably didn't rest enough, he said stubbornly. I thought I'd arrange a full medical checkup for him soon. But before I could do that, I discovered Simon might be having an affair. Naturally, that matter was pushed aside. But now it seems Simon must have gone to the hospital, even though he pushed himself so hard he wouldn't be so careless as to ignore his health completely. Something was wrong with his body, he would have been the first to notice. I turned my head and looked back inside. Didn't expect Simon to be quite the planner. What do you mean? Lara stared at me, trying to find a crack in my expression. Don't bother looking. I really didn't know about it, but Simon probably did. I have a feeling he's getting revenge on you. I looked at Lara, my voice steady and certain. Face went pale, as if she'd just realized something she couldn't believe. No way. He loves me, she whispered. He said it himself. He's always loved me. There's no way he's taking revenge on me. I responded with some vague noises, not fully agreeing, but my eyes stayed fixed on Simon's assistant standing outside the door. Have you forgotten? When you broke up with Simon so decisively, he drank until he vomited blood and ended up in the hospital. And what were you doing then? All right, watching fireworks with your rich new boyfriend. That night, the fireworks were beautiful, and Simon watched the entire show alone from his hospital room. Lara sank back into her chair, her face ghostly pale. I looked at her and smiled softly. Don't worry, I'm just guessing. No need to take it too seriously. Be afraid. Simon still has shares in the company, and I won't fire him. He'll just be demoted. I'll make sure his salary keeps coming so you won't be short of anything. After saying that, I grabbed my bag and headed for the door. Before I stepped out, I looked back inside. Lara was slumped in her chair, her face vacant, her eyes empty. I averted my gaze and made eye contact with Simon's assistant at the door. I nodded politely and then left. When I got into the car, I didn't tell the driver to leave immediately. Instead, I pulled a small notebook from my bag. I opened it, and on the front page, written clearly, was the name Simon. Just said wasn't made up. Nor was it meant to scare Lara. It was all written down in Simon's journal. I hummed a tune and flipped through a few pages before tucking the notebook back into my bag. I'd found the journal while I was moving. Simon had hidden it deep, and if I hadn't taken notes from the bed, I wouldn't have discovered the secret compartment under the bed frame. Inside that compartment was the notebook. The journal contained all of Simon's darkest thoughts. Only after reading it did I realize he wasn't as perfect as he seemed on the surface. I'd been with him since our senior year of college, living with him day and night for 7 more years after graduation. And we'd been married for quite some time now. Nearly 9 years altogether, and I'd never truly seen his real personality. How deeply he had hidden it, how cunning he truly was. But some things he said were true. He had accepted my confession and been with me mainly so he wouldn't be alone while starting his business. At the time, I chased him for 2 whole years. No matter how many times he rejected me, I never gave up. So back then, I was his best option. But some of what he wrote was complete lies. He didn't love Lara. He was just bitter because she broke up with him for someone else. Lara might have been an obsession, but she wasn't the unattainable dream girl he couldn't have. He'd gone to the hospital for tests, and while nothing definite was found, the doctor suspected a stroke based on his symptoms and various tests. A stroke could cause paralysis. So yes, he'd known all along. Sometimes I can't even tell which version of him is the real Simon. He wasn't entirely heartless toward me. In his journal, he'd written about planning to divorce me, but he didn't expect me to be the one to make the first move. He wrote that I'd been very good to him so he wouldn't cling to me. The person he wanted to hold on to was Lara. I was so sure she wouldn't escape the marriage because divorce needs both people to agree. Simon had finally gotten Lara all to himself, and he wasn't planning to let her go. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been so eager to get the marriage certificate with her, nor would he have sent his most trusted assistant to watch over her. And the way he signed the divorce papers so quickly, leaving with nothing, it really seemed like he was trying to make things difficult for Lara. Simon was incredibly meticulous in his efforts. "Drive. Let's go to the hospital," I told the driver, leaning against the window. "Yes," he replied. Some things, after all, needed to be returned to their rightful owner. I arrived at Simon's hospital room and saw him lying in bed. Without hesitation, I pushed open the door and walked in, placing the journal on the bedside table. Simon's eyes tracked my movement, finally settling on the journal. Ah, ah, ah. Simon made some garbled sounds. I pretended not to understand, looking at him with concern. "What's wrong? Are you feeling uncomfortable? Do you need me to call the doctor?" Simon, unable to speak clearly, only made incoherent noises. I glanced at the door, then stood up to close it before sitting back down in the chair. "Simon, you really are a selfish, self-centered person, ruining the lives of 2 women like this. I'm leaving your journal here. Whatever Lara sees when she finds it, and whatever consequences that brings, is none of my concern. These are the seeds you've sown, and now you'll have to face the harvest. In your mind, maybe you think you've been good to me. But don't forget, if it weren't for your selfishness in agreeing to my confession back in our senior year, I wouldn't have wasted so much time on you. And let's not forget, you were unfaithful during our marriage. The only thing you did right for me was signing the divorce papers. But the fact that you divorced me just to drag another woman down with you makes you even more disgusting in my eyes." My phone buzzed, and I glanced at a torn message from the driver downstairs. "Boss, Lara's back." I pocketed my phone and stood up, leaving the room without another glance at him. I didn't rush to leave, though. Instead, I found a hiding spot and watched. Lara entered the hospital room, and Simon's assistant stood outside. When he saw me, he started to speak, but I gestured for him to be quiet, and he fell silent. He was on Simon's side, but between Lara and me, he leaned more toward me. I might not treat Simon well, but I would never do anything to harm him. The assistant hadn't had much contact with Lara, so he didn't trust her. I stood at the door with the assistant, watching as Lara had already found the journal I left in the room. As I expected, she read it and reacted strongly. She broke down, screaming and questioning Simon, but Simon just closed his eyes, not even glancing at her. Seeing his lack of response, Lara started hitting him and yelling at him. I turned my head and looked at the assistant. Aren't you going to step in? I asked. He hesitated. Am I even going to get paid now? I thought about it. Simon had already dismissed him a long time ago. Probably not, he said with a bitter smile. Before this, Simon only paid me 1 month's salary in advance. Come back and work for me. You'll be my assistant again. Same salary as before, and if you do a good job, I'll give you a raise. Aren't you worried I might leak company secrets? I glanced at Lara and Simon inside the hospital room. You won't, I don't know. What Simon did to earn your loyalty. But if you're this dedicated to him, you wouldn't ruin the company when he needs money the most. After all, without the company, he wouldn't even be able to pay his medical bills. The assistant didn't reply. Instead, he took out his phone. I scanned the QR code on his screen and added him as a friend. Thank you, he said, then walked into the room. I stepped aside and stood behind the wall, making sure no one could see me. The assistant would occasionally update me on Simon and Lara's situation. I listened casually, not paying much attention. For a long time, I didn't hear anything from him. The next time I heard about them was a year later. Lara had given birth to their child, but shortly after she was taken into custody. The reason? Child and spousal abuse. I put down my laptop and looked at the assistant, who was focused on his paperwork at his desk. Then I turned away. He really was loyal. I rubbed my temples and got back to my own work. From this point on, none of this was my concern. Whatever their fate, I was moving toward a future without them.